Before we get into the Sixers talk, I want to backtrack a little bit, like I mentioned, and I want to get to what we joked about a little bit, this Deshaun Watson situation in Houston. My partner, as he always does, brings very intelligent and very pertinent insight to the dialogue. One of the first things he mentioned was the situation with the Caucasian football player
Mm-hmm.
who abused his girlfriend.
Yep.
There's written documentation as evidence. There are there's photo documentation evidence,
Mm-hmm.
and the majority of the people that have heard and expressed interest or expressed comments about the Deshaun Watson situation, like Baldy said, don't even know that young man's name. All in all, that situation seems to be or have been swept under the rug. So then we move on to Houston. And like I mentioned in the news and updates in the open, there's only one criminal suit. So all these other suits are civil. So let's just play with the numbers a little bit. I said I think the number's up to 21 alleged cases. So you got one that's actually criminal or alleged actually criminal. So you got 20 others that could potentially be civil. But my partner also brought up that there are some massage therapists that may be implicated or may not be implicated that have come to the defense of Deshaun Watson and have stated that when they had encounters with him, he was nothing but, let's say, the consummate professional.
Yeah. See, they worked with him over 130 times in 5 years, and he's never given them an uncomfortable moment.
Right. So we backtracked a little bit and we joked about it, what's going on in Houston. We backtracked a little bit. J.J. Watt wanted out of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
J.J. Watt, that situation was handled as quickly as it could. He was bought out, he was released, and signed with another team. Deshaun Watson, apparently for whatever reason, has tired of that situation, is not comfortable or is not believing in the brass there with progression of the team. He feels like they're going backwards instead of forwards. So he has asked for a trade. Okay, fine. Houston was adamant at the very beginning in saying that they were not going to trade him. Sean Watson comes back and says, well, I'm not playing. Which he has that right. I'm not playing. Y'all don't want to trade me, then I'm not going to play. Whatever. Then there was a lot of back and forth for a few weeks. And then all of a sudden, these alleged misconduct acts pop up. And as the weeks progress, they just pile them on, pile them on, pile them on.
Out of nowhere.
To the extent where they are, like we said, allegedly up to 21. Out of nowhere. If this, in my opinion, was truly going on, knowing Deshaun Jackson is an African American quarterback, remembering what my partner mentioned to you about us as African Americans or as African American athletes wearing the goggles, if this had happened, truly happened, the way that they are portraying that these things happen, it wouldn't have taken this long for it to come out.
He is.
Yeah, I mean, just before you finish, but I mean, we can go back as far and talk about the Iverson practice ran again,
Mm-hmm.
which had really no bearing on this conversation, just in the sakes that happened, nothing bad. He just was a little upset. He was going through something else, and he was like, "Yo, y'all sitting here talking about practice? Like, we had a game. Y'all talking about practice?" That went viral in a matter of minutes.
Without all the context.
Without all the context, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have this type of situation where deep down inside we know, or we can say, this is some good content. This would have been out 2 years ago.
Yeah, and listen, and I'm not gonna ever devalue the privacy of a victim,
Right.
because a lot of times people that are victims are not comfortable,
Carlos, what's going on?
are not comfortable putting it out there, fearing to lose their job, you know, for whatever reason. They may or may not. Now, I don't know if the board did it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And we'll probably never know.
I have no idea. Here's what I do know. What I do know is what has presented to us is a serial groper, a serial sexual harasser.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's being presented to us.
Right.
He's got issues, over 20 and 30 women coming on. He's a serial harassment guy.
And you know, just to touch that, what you just said, we all know what it means to be a serial. That means over an extended period of time. So I can't believe that this many alleged cases have popped up within, let's say, a month, 2 months since he requested for a trade.
Mm-hmm.
You can't sell me that.
It never
that
existed
all this
before
happened.
he mentioned
Right.
a trade.
You can't sell me that this happened in that 2 month time frame with 20 something alleged incidents. He's off season, and it was never mentioned until.
How about this, D? How about this?
What's
how
up,
about,
Miriam Hanks?
How about this
Memories.
avenue? Let's say he did do it, Houston Texans.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that you kept in the vault just in case he became disgruntled?
Mm-hmm.
So if it is something you had in the vault, and this is who he was, well, the black eye's on you because you
Right.
knew he was a serial harasser.
Right.
So you mean to tell me these people came to you or to your organization to complain about one of your guys over the course of 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, last month? They came to you all these years, and you just said, well, we'll just deal with it. We'll hide it. And
Right.
then the minute that this man seems like he's disgruntled,
Mm-hmm.
you go pull out the briefcase of all the stuff that he supposedly did. Oh,
Yeah.
so in reality, you are the cultivators of his behavior.
Yep.
So if he did it one time and somebody came to you, it should have been dealt with then. But now you telling me you allowed 18 of them? You saying all these complaints just popped up, and it's kind of crazy that it just popped up when he said he no longer wanted to be there. So y'all had this in the vote.
Yeah.
Who had it in the vote? Was it the president? Was it the general manager? Who had it in the vote? Where did it come from?
Absolutely.
Because something like that can't just come out of thin air. You got a trail of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Come on, man.
And there's no way that all of these instances happened in this short period of time, or that you knew about these instances in this short period of time. I mean, it's real life, but just a comparison, like I watch Law and Order, watch all the Law and Orders, criminal shows, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You see when they get a serial case and they talking about, yeah, we need help, we need tips or whatever. You see the plethora of people that come in and say, well, this is what I heard, and this is what I heard. Keyword, what I heard.
What you heard.
And you always get, and then you gotta weed through all of that. So like Baldy said, if that's the case and y'all held on to it,
Yeah.
that means
You the enabler of
that
his
means y'all
behavior.
enabled it, one, and two, it's something else that's been going on there
Mhm.
that y'all didn't want to own up to build up to him finally saying, oh, I want to be traded.
Mhm. And where all the paperwork of those women that complained to the organization? Where's your complaint paperwork, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your class action lawsuit against a corporation or against a team
Right.
that had you working in a hostile environment.
Yeah.
So if these things, where's your paperwork on them?
Right.
Okay, they got the paperwork on him.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your paperwork on them?
Yep.
Because your lawyers supposed to been sending stuff to the Houston Texans saying that they're getting sued, and my client X, Y, and Z is in a class action lawsuit against the Houston Texans. Where's
Well,
that
it should
paperwork
be.
at?
Yeah.
Or is all these just accusation and primed suspects that you just want to bring to the table?
Or could it be?
You coerced
Yeah,
suspects.
or could it be he asking for a trade? We still owe him money. So yeah, we may eventually get around to trading him, but we ain't gonna pay him that
You
money.
got to pay him that
we
cash.
gonna take that money and get it back.
You got to
some
pay him
kind
that
of way.
cash. You know it's gonna come.
Yeah,
You
we
know it
gotta
come down
get
to
that
the
money back
dollar.
in some kind of way. So all right,
Listen.
let's do this, and we can pay these chicks. Where we can go back to them
Listen.
and say, look, we paid you $3 million. Look, we need about $1.5 million of that back.
Listen, this country in a nutshell, not to be black and white, but we live in a black and white environment.
Absolutely.
And what we do actually know is this country has no problem with crucifying any athlete for the betterment of their dollar.
Yep.
We know it. We've seen it.
Back to what Jason Carson told us years ago. Controlling the narrative. That's all it was.
That's
What it
it.
boils down to.
That's what it comes
I mean,
down
you
to.
look at it in all the situations. In this situation, you look at it in the Colin Kaepernick situation. You know, you look at it slightly in the Deshaun Jackson situation, where Julian Edelman got involved, controlling the narrative. It's always going to come back to the big conglomerate wanting to control the narrative.
And unless you are an extremely vocal individual, despite what your lawyers may tell you to and to not do, if you are an extremely vocal individual, I'm gonna have this, since y'all talking about me in the public,
Yep.
and you gonna crucify me in the public, I'm gonna have conversation in the public.
Right.
I'm gonna bring it to the forum.
Yep.
Because that's the one thing that is not the backbone of the athlete is controlled by a dollar now, and it takes a special individual
Right.
to just say, all right, well, it is what it is. I ain't worried about the paper. I'm good. But listen, it comes down to the old saying: it's not about who's right; it's about what's right. And if what is right is you standing up, especially for yourself, if it's gonna cost you this,
Yeah.
hey brother, if you can go to sleep knowing that you did everything you're supposed to do for you and your family, cool.
Right.
If you're comfortable with going to bed, hoping that things turn out right, cool. Live with everything that comes on both spectrums.
sides.
You know what I mean? But you got to figure out which one you're comfortable with.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you know, you could be vilified, and you could be, you know, you're gonna go through some
Or
stuff.
not. Yep.
Is it worth it?
That's the bottom line. That's the
Deshaun
key.
Jackson hasn't really. I mean, Deshaun Watson hasn't really said much.
Right.
Naturally, because legally they probably told him,
Yeah.
we don't
You
want you
can't
to
go-
talk.
yeah,
This
don't
is
say
something
nothing.
different. You know what I mean? This is something different. We can't.
Right.
To some degree, this man got to make a statement.
Yeah.
To some
he's gonna have
degree, he's going to have to speak up for himself.
Right.
For himself. He said a few things early on. You know, I'm gonna let things say. You know, some old something they done wrote down for him.
Stuff. Yeah.
But, bro, that ain't. Come on, man.
Yeah. You got to stand.
You
up
gotta
for
be
yourself.
on there like R. Kelly. I'll fight for my life.
That's right.
You hear me?
Absolutely.
You gotta be on your R. Kelly go. I can listen,
Absolutely,
man.
man.
I'll fight for my life here.
with that being said, we will definitely keep an eyes and ears on this situation. And as we get updates, or as I get updates, however we can put it together, we will definitely get you caught up with what's going on. So before we close out today, like I said, we didn't get to the Eagles talk, we didn't get to that Pro Act, but you can go to the page and I post that stuff all the time, even though I bring it to you live on Mondays. I post a lot of that stuff anyway. You got a 17-game season that's approved by the owners. The Eagles made a trade with the 49ers and the Dolphins to shake up the draft. They moved down to 12. We talked about that a few weeks ago. So we're just waiting on the draft to come up in a couple weeks to see how this plays out. A lot of speculation is that the Eagles will get one of the Alabama receivers. It's looking more like it may be closer to Jalen, I don't know if I'm saying his first name is Jalen, but Waddle.
Yeah, the
The one
Waddle.
that
I
got
know
injured. Yeah, the one that got injured. which arguably a lot of people said if he hadn't got injured, he would have been the Heisman Trophy winner over his teammate and counterpart, Devontae Smith. So, we all talked about the Sixers, and we got the two Sixers fans in the building today. Don't have a Lakers fan in here, which is okay. But I'm sure he's tuned in, I'm sure he's watching. And we fought, we suffered a little bit, and we got through the trade deadline. Sixers made what a lot of people have dubbed a weird, strange trade, a minimal trade. But I like the trade that they made and bringing in a George Hill. I'm talking to other people, and I mentioned to some people that looking at the Sixers record, and this was maybe a week or two ago, or right before the trade deadline when they only had about 12 or 13 losses at the time. I thought about it, and I realized what George Hill brings to the table, and I mentioned to somebody that with the addition of him, we could have arguably won another 3 to 5 of those at the time 12 losses that we had because of late game situations. And that was one of the things. A lot of people were saying that we needed that stretch 4 or 5, which I kind of agree with. But I also felt like we needed that point guard that was a true point guard within the NBA realm that could be the extension of Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell on the floor. No disrespect to Ben Simmons, but again, like I keep telling people, Ben Simmons is playing point guard. He's not a point guard. He didn't start playing point guard until he got to the NBA under Brett Brown. Point guard in the NBA is a very vital position. It's very hard to learn on the fly at the top, at the highest level of basketball in the world. Okay, so this addition of George Hill, I think, will help Ben Simmons down the stretch and in the playoffs, because you can play him with starters or you can play him with the bench, and he can be Doc Rivers on the court for you. They did get rid of Tony Bradley, who a lot of people say, oh, we should have kept Tony Bradley. Tony Bradley was playing because of an injury. No discredit, he was beginning to play well, but you know that old cliche saying, scared money don't make no money.
Make no money, baby.
So you had to give up something. People are still, I guess, in a tizzy or a little disappointed that we didn't get Kyle Lowry. But you have to pay attention to what's going on with the Sixers team right now. Some of the pieces that were being requested are key pieces in this particular team's situation. The Matisse Thybulle.
Right.
You can't give him up right now. The same situation with, just a little bit off track, with Miami and Toronto, where Toronto was asking for Tyler Hero. No disrespect to Kyle, because I love Kyle. I love his game. He's the true Philadelphia guard. But as far as a business-wise and progression, I don't feel like Miami was really comfortable with giving up a 21-year-old who figures to be 4 or 5 years into their plans, as opposed to bringing in a 35-year-old point guard who is on somewhat of the downslide of his career, to have to pay him 40 to 50 million over the next 2 years.
Right.
So business-wise, it wasn't.
Yeah, it don't make sense.
It wasn't
not
a real good look.
What they got going on.
So we'll see. Hopefully George Hill, I saw him on the bench the other night. Hopefully he's still working to come back. So hopefully he can get at least 3 to 5 games towards the end of the season to get him a little rhythm, get some continuity with the rest of the team moving into the playoffs. The other thing I want to talk about with the Sixers is the fact that now, even with Dwight Howard, we still need another big as far as a 5. So we kind of have to push off of that stretch 4, stretch 5. We need a 5. People keep asking me about the Brooklyn Nets and everything that they did. I'm telling people, and I'm telling people this from the very beginning, that they don't scare me. obviously the moves that they made have them looking in their rearview mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and they've seen what the Sixers have done with arguably less talent
Mm-hmm.
than what they had. They bring in LaMarcus Aldridge. Who else? They bring in Blake Griffin, who still don't hold a straw to Joel Embiid when he's got his mojo
Yeah,
going.
yeah, most definitely.
Still don't. So there's been talk about them changing the role of DeAndre Jordan. There's also talk in Lakerland with the addition of Andre Drummond now that they may be souring away from Marc Gasol. If it comes to, we're still in the buyout market, things of that nature. If it comes to that, I wouldn't mind the Sixers at least kicking the tires on those two guys get bought out as backups,
Mm-hmm.
because
I prefer Marc Gasol.
I would prefer Marc Gasol because it gives you a little bit on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
DeAndre Jordan is more so one-dimensional, but you know, if you could pry one of those guys away, it would help. And I still think that they are active in the buyout market, inquiring about what could go on. The other thing I want to bring up, as far as with the situation with Joel Embiid, and Frank, I kind of need you some input if you tuned in, or Damani if you tuned in, some Lakers fans. I saw something on TV, Chris Broussard, when Joel got injured. Chris Broussard immediately said that Joel Embiid is now out of the MVP race, which I disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
I figure he's going to be out a couple weeks, 10 games. And the difference was, and where I'm going with this is understanding, with his injury, we knew that he would be tapped. We had a definite timetable for his return. So he was also advocating for LeBron being now the MVP. And then it turns around and LeBron gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
The high ankle sprain. They use that word. LeBron's out indefinitely. Which means they don't know
Mm-hmm.
if or when he's going to come back, or what kind of shape he's going to be in when he comes back. They're already down those two stars, Anthony Davis and LeBron James. We've seen how they slip. They slipped from number 2. I still think they're like at number 4. With the way that those guys are playing, and then they get Andre Drummond, and he hurts his toe on his debut. So they could ironically fall lower than 4, maybe 5, 6 in the West, because teams that were right behind them, Portland and Denver, got significantly better. Okay, but the point I wanted to make was there's a lot of hate for the Sixers, just in general. And I get it, people, we came up with the trusted process with Sam Hinkie and all of that, yada, 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 that's fine and well. But there always seems to be some negativeness involving the Sixers. Like I said, with Chris Broussard saying Joel Embiid is immediately out of the race. Where's that same energy, that same fire, now that LeBron is hurt?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're saying that, and like I said, the difference is, we had a timetable and Joel Embiid has returned for 1 game. He didn't play back-to-backs, which I understand. He's just coming back after being out 2 weeks with no actual basketball physical contact. LeBron James has not returned yet. So could you say that LeBron James is out of the MVP race?
He's definitely out of it.
I mean, I would say so. Because like I said, Joel Embiid has returned. And we knew that at some point he was going to return before the end of the season. When they use that word indefinitely, in my opinion, it just means that they don't know.
They have no idea. It was 4 to 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
4 to 6 weeks around March when it happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What has that turned into? Because there hasn't really been an update on his progress.
And either one of them, for that matter.
Nah. Well, with Anthony Davis, his has just been, there's no timetable for his return. Now, what could really be happening?
What's going on, bro?
Could he be possibly far more injured than what leading up to be.
Mm-hmm.
You had a high ankle sprain. Could it be your Achilles?
Yep.
You know, could it be? Because normally that high ankle sprain has that connection to that tendon. So we don't know. You know what I mean? I know I watched the game when he grabbed his leg. You know what I mean? That had some strain on it. So,
Yep.
okay, these dudes are professional athletes. He's gonna find some way to stay in shape. That's fine. We know it's not full speed,
Right.
NBA speed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have the ability to come back? We've seen him come back before from things.
Right.
Probably not so much of an injury like this
Like this. Right.
at this particular time in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But we do know this. Like you said about that energy for Joel Embiid, I have not seen that same energy talk about him not being. They still got his name up in the mix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And he ain't touched the court.
Absolutely.
Don't seem like he planning on touching one. What's their record? They what, like 31?
Something.
31 and 16.
They
They like
they
fifth.
lost about 3 or 4 straight.
They
They
like
might be
fourth or fifth.
fourth or fifth now.
Yeah, they like 4th, 5th in the West. Who the last seed over there? Right, I think the Grizzlies, Memphis or somebody.
Yeah.
They like 5, 6 games
Yeah.
off their back.
And it's stretched now. So
Yeah.
it's 10 teams now. So you got that play-in.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I mean, depending on how those injuries play out and the healing of those injuries play out, they could be very close to being in a play-in game, in that play-in
Yeah.
tournament.
Yeah,
Because like we said, the Grizzlies are playing better. They're one of the youngest teams, but they're playing better.
hmm
And you got Portland and Denver that got better through the trade market.
right.
So we will definitely
Yeah,
see.
it's going to be weird to see how this pans out.
And you know, and on the other side of the fence, you got a Sixers team that maintained first place
Right.
until just recently, where it's now tied with the Brooklyn Nets.
hmm
Even with the additions that the Brooklyn Nets made. And you know, it's been a lot of jokes about that. I even posted one where somebody said that they shined got Shep from above the rim. It's funny.
They really
but-
got Tommy Shepard.
Yeah, they may got Tom Shepard or whatever, you know. Then they had these other memes with the other internet stuff where they're talking about Bill Russell was working out, so they might be calling him in too. So, like I said, that just leads me to believe that they are heavily looking in their rearview mirror. And all 3 of their stars have missed time. I don't
Right.
know if KD's back yet or when he'll be back, but he's been out since before the All-Star break. For about a week or so, James Harden was pretty much pushing himself up to a leading candidate for MVP. Now he's down with the hamstring injury. It's Kyrie Irving. And I've also talked to other people, you know, the addition of LaMarcus Aldridge. Yeah, okay. But the other thing that I think is going to really, really come down to the wire with the Brooklyn Nets is what is the true injury and how healthy will KD be when he comes back? And the fact that you now have 2 players in your backcourt, James Harden and Kyrie Irving, who are ball dominant. Okay, one who has won a championship, and in my opinion, was a huge part in that Cleveland championship. I think he won that championship for Cleveland. Although LeBron got the MVP, I still think that Kyrie won that championship for Cleveland. And you got James Harden, who's just an amazing scorer, but has never won a championship. So, at some point, although they've been somewhat coexisting so far, at some point, me knowing or me feeling like I understand or have an understanding of Kyrie Irving as the basketball player, there may come a point where these 2 guys' egos are going to clash.
Eventually.
Like I said, it hasn't happened yet. But again, I just feel like that because, like I mentioned, there's one that has been through the play. Both of them have been to the playoffs, but there's one that has gotten to the mountaintop. It was a huge part in getting to the mountaintop. The other one has not reached the mountaintop yet.
We can kind of see it. unfolding in
It's
front
kind of
of us.
like written on the wall.
You know what I'm saying? And one of the main reasons why we can kind of see it is because they haven't had an opportunity to kind of work through it because of injuries.
Right.
You know, had we been able to see that, our conversation would probably be different. Like, yo, it seemed like they figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It seemed like they kind of like got a little rhythm on where we're gonna go with the hot hand, whatever the situation would be.
Right.
We have not seen it, so technically, it's going to seem like we're going to see it in the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah.
Will it be some sort of imbalance, or will it mesh real fast? We don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which normally that's what the regular season is for you to work through those situations.
Mm-hmm.
That way we're a little more comfortable with it when we get to the postseason.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the advantages I feel like the Sixers have. In a small
chemistry.
way.
Yeah,
In a
chemistry.
small way, not that I wish Joel was hurt, but in a small way, that injury was somewhat of a blessing for the rest of the team. And it shows. Like you said, the disrespect on Tobias Harris, who carried us through that stretch
Yeah, he did.
when Joel was out. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, in my opinion, should have been an all-star.
Oh, most definitely.
Should have been an all-star. But that's neither here nor there. But I think that's, again, like I said, that's one of the advantages I think the Sixers have, where these guys had to play without their main focal point on the offensive end and pretty much on the defensive end, and they sustained. They went 4-2 on a somewhat rough West Coast trip.
Right.
Okay. And we've got one of the toughest schedules down the stretch. We got another 4-game stretch coming up. I mean, we got Boston tomorrow.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
You know, and then we still got in there. I think we got to play Brooklyn again. We got a back-to-back with the Bucks.
Yeah.
You know, so we've got a tougher schedule. But I think all of that time, that stretch, that 2-week stretch that he was out, and the way that they played and came together, you see the difference in the coaching. You see the difference in the players where, in my opinion, they now have a better understanding of their roles.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of credit I feel like goes to Shake Milton, because now he's a lot more comfortable in his role. He can play a little bit of point guard, but he can get his own shot. So that's what he's put in position.
And with
to
Maxey
do.
out,
Right.
that
And
accumulated
that's what-
more minutes for him as
That's
well.
what I think he was put in the correct position right now to be that particular player, because as you have seen, he's played on the court with Ben and he's played without Ben.
Right.
So that's going to help. And like I said, the coaching staff, the different coaching staff, has found the correct roles for the roster that is in front of them. You look at Tobias Harris, who was arguably having his best season under Doc Rivers with the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's reunited with Doc, and you see the difference in him from this year to last year. You see the huge difference. So we will definitely see. And like I said, with the addition of George Hill, the things that he can do, you can play him with the starters, you can play him with the bench players. And you have that extension now, the point guard, where you can play him with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons can still be your main facilitator, but now you have that late in the game where you can say, George Hill, you control it.
Mm-hmm.
And you got if he's playing with the starters, you got 3 post players.
Right.
You got 3 options. And he's a threat to score himself.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's not like he's just going to be out there.
So it's
You can't leave him open because he can knock it down.
He's going to help.
Yeah, he's definitely going to
it's
help.
just unfortunate that, and I think the Sixers are doing the right thing by taking every precaution and not rushing him into the fold.
Mm-hmm.
So we are definitely going to see how this plays out. Like I said, I don't fear Brooklyn, even though they made the additions they made. I don't fear them because, like Baldy just mentioned and we both mentioned, those egos with those 2 guards, at some point, it's not going to be as nice as it is right now.
Right.
It's you can see it almost right now. Like when the Sixers have split so far with the Nets, 1 game apiece. They beat them with James Harden. Didn't have Kyrie, didn't have KD, but they beat them with James Harden. Okay, they beat us with nobody,
Mm-hmm.
which touche,
Right.
1-1. And we got to play y'all again. So hopefully we'll be at full squad and they'll be at full squad, and we'll do what we need to do
Mm-hmm.
and to beat them. But again, they don't scare me. I think the coaching staff is better. You got a first time head coach in Steve Nash, and he's put some people together. But you got guys that have worked together on that Sixers bench as far as the coaching staff, and you got some coaches in there that have worked with individual players on that Sixers roster. So another advantage I think the Sixers have
Mm-hmm.
in that situation. But we talk about that, and then we get back to the West to wrap up. And you talk about that LeBron James and that Lakers situation, and Frank always says he didn't think they can win it again with AD, without AD or LeBron. Well, right now you're without both of them.
Mm-hmm.
You're slipping,
And Utah run y'all conference.
and Utah,
Utah ball. Utah
one
got
of
the
the
best record,
smallest markets
best record in
in
the
NBA,
league.
has the best record in the league and is running almost
And
running
Phoenix
away
is right behind them.
with that conference, and Phoenix is right there. So you're looking at, unfortunately, Lakers fans, you could possibly fall into that play-in tournament. I mean, I'm not wishing that on you, but I'm just calling a spade and seeing what's going on
It's the probability.
with teams in the West. It's
Mhm.
a possible. It's a crapshoot, but it's
Mhm.
a possibility. So with that being said, folks, we wrap up another great installment of the Sports Rap Podcast.
Yes, sir.
Glad
yes,
to have
sir.
my partner in the building with me,
I'm glad to
with
be in the
some
building.
different
baby.
insight as opposed to you guys just having me and listening to my insight the entire time, which is always a great thing. Because I know you appreciate my insight, you appreciate both of our insight, but it's just so much better when the both of us say it.
Yeah, man. I miss it.
It's just so much better. We agree a lot, but we also give you points from different perspectives
Mm-hmm.
and bring them to the table and mesh them together like we do. So again, we appreciate you all for tuning in. I'm going to give you some schedules for today. You start off with the men's national title game, Baylor against Gonzaga at 9 p.m. on CBS. NHL, Senators are at the Jets, Oilers and the Canadiens. Philadelphia Flyers are in action against the Boston Bruins. The Golden Knights and the Blues, the Avalanche and the Wild, Maple Leafs and the Flames, Coyotes and Kings. In the NBA, the Knicks are at the Nets, the Kings are at the Timberwolves, Pistons are at the Thunder, the Cavs are at the Spurs, Jazz and the Mavs, the Wizards, Raptors, Suns, Rockets. Definitely will have an eye on that Subway series there, the Subway matchup, Knicks and Nets. Nets coming off a loss to the Chicago Bulls, and Sixers also coming off a loss to the Grizzlies, which kept us tied for first place in the Eastern Conference. Finally, moving into Major League Baseball, again, shout out to the Phillies for taking the sweep in that season opening series against the Braves. You've got Twins and Tigers, Braves and Nationals, Blue Jays, Rangers, Royals, Indians, Orioles, Yankees, Pirates, Reds, Cards, Marlins. The Mets are in town to face up the Phillies, the Rays and the Red Sox, the Brewers and the Cubs, Astros and the Angels, Dodgers and the A's, Giants and the Padres, and closing out the White Sox and the Mariners. You know where you can find us each and every Monday and all week on social media. The group page, Sports Rap Podcast on Facebook. You can also catch me, Instagram and Twitter at sportsrap_D. You can check the webpage, sportsrapradio.com. The podcast will go up either tomorrow or Wednesday on iHeart, Google, Apple, and most of your podcast outlets. Just search Sports Rap Podcast. Also, video will go up on YouTube one day this week, Sports Rap TV. Make sure you get over there, press the subscribe button, hit the like button on the videos that you like. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Leave us some comments. Tell us how we're doing. We like to hear that kind of stuff. And that's about it for me, Baldy.
Once again, you can catch me at Ball75 on Instagram, Aaron Baltimore on Facebook.
And right back here next Monday on Heat 100 Radio, heat100radio.com, Sports Rap, taking you out One more chance. Enjoy the 67 potentially high today. The great weather. It is springtime. We are out of the cold. It's Monday. Be great on purpose. We'll see you next Monday and all week on social media.